just thought I'd do a little setup here to show you a few things I've fiddled with on my underquilt suspension. Come on in. Alrighty. So pretty much all underquilts will have a primary suspension which runs through a channel, and you tension that up so that it snugs up underneath you and raises the underquilt up underneath to snug up against your buttocks. And if you want, you can then move the whole underquilt backwards and forwards along the channel to get it in the right place. Now, one issue they've had with that is the underquilt sometimes would sag under its own weight and accordion in and make it sag underneath you. So HammockGear and a few of the other manufacturers put a secondary suspension line in here, which you can adjust in the hammock if you want, using these line locks. So you pull and it will pull the whole underquilt that way. Release and it slips that way, so you can fine tune where your underquilt is. And it also takes some of the strain off the primary suspension. What I've done is I've changed it about a bit, so instead of the primary and secondary being separate lines, I've taken the primary suspension up to the beaner, around the beaner, and then back down to the secondary suspension line lock. So when you pull on that, it not only tightens up the secondary but also the primary, and you can adjust everything from the hammock, so you don't need to get out to adjust your primary suspension. Now, I found there might be one issue with that, which I've addressed, is that if you tighten this up, you can just slide the whole of the lot from one end to the other, like one of those fancy continuous ridge lines where you can adjust your tart from one end. So I tried to go down this end, and as you'll see, what I did was I took the primary suspension and made a knot around that little tab there, so that when I pull the opposite end, the head end, which we were just at, the foot end stays where it is, but I can still go up the primary, round the S-beaner, and then back down to the line lock. So I can adjust all four suspension lines while I'm lying in the hammock. I'll show you that in a minute. Now, the other thing I've done is where the S-beaner is clipped on to the end of the hammock, instead of clipping it on up there over my continuous loop, I've taken it back and clipped it onto this little prusik loop here, like that. That means that the angle that the suspension line goes up to is variable. See, if it's up on the end of the continuous loop there, it'll just follow the line of the hammock down. But if I put it up here on this prusik loop, I can adjust this one way or the other. It's tight as a tiger at the moment, so I can't do it with one hand, but I can slack that off, move it back up that way, or if I want a steeper angle, I can move it down this way. Just a little finessing thing. And same thing up here. Right, time to get in and show some hanging action. So you can see that when I'm not in the hammock, it's hoiking up the hammock at either end, so it's actually lifting the hammock up. And when I get in, the shock cord should stretch out, but hold the underquilt underneath me. getting in. First I want to make sure that the foot end, my feet are underneath that shock cord. I'm not forcing it off my foot. And then hoik this up so it's over my shoulder. And the top end of this hammock really should be just over my shoulders. This is a 3/4 length. I'm going to have my feet sticking out a bit. I'll have the pad there to insulate them. So it's actually quite high up here. So I can slack this one off a bit, maybe on both sides. I can tighten these ones up to bring it down towards my feet a little bit. And I can have a quick crafty feel underneath me, see if there are any gaps between the hammock fabric and the underquilt fabric that's tucked up underneath me. Still a little bit loose, I think there's air gaps. So I'm just cinch these all up a little bit. Just to get that tension a little bit more. And the undercut tucked up nicely so I can feel the fabric brushing up against each other there. There's no gaps. It's all just nicely held up against my bum. Make sure it's over the shoulder. You're good to go. You can, if you want, put the hammock, the underquilt on a bit of an asymmetrical way, tensioning up the shoulder side and the foot side a little bit more so you get that asymmetrical lay across the diagonal. That works quite good. Probably bring it towards the head and a little bit more now. That's tucked up underneath my shoulders and get that little cold gap just there. That's it, you see. That's what I do. It may not be what you do. Hang your own hat. And it's awfully hot today. I think I'm going to take the quilt off, which is always an option. Too hot, soon cool down. Want it back, just pull it back under. Want some venting? Just release the baffles at each end. I'll let it vent at the head and foot. Open out those baffles, let some air in. Still too hot? You know, just release these a bit. That hot underquilt. Hang a little lower. Let some air in underneath you. Then you're bound to wake up about 3 AM with a cold ass. Don't need to get out. Just climb it all back up again. Don't even need to get out from under your top quilt. Just like stealing duvet from the wife. All clear? Super duper. Laters, dudes.